Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin, your host and a beautifully imperfect, stumbling, bumbling child of an absolutely powerful and perfectly loving God and an addict. Rico 12 is all about exploring the common threads of addiction and sharing tools and hope from those on a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and places to learn and support one another. Our speakers represent various fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, thus showing the common threads of recovery, no matter our addiction or affliction. Today's speaker for the 255th meeting is Kevin B., another first-time Rico 12 speaker. His chosen topic today is the role of higher power in the 12 steps, and I look forward to hearing his message here in a few minutes. First, for a little bit of business. Rico 12 has several recovery resources in our family of podcasts and social media communities. To learn more, listen more, connect more, or just hang out and learn and grow with us, you can check out the other podcasts that you can find at www.rico12.com. That's RECO12.com. To join our social communities or check out the chat and show notes, or send me an email at rico12pod@gmail.com, and I can get you in on those social media communities, including WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is that works for you. I feel we recently had another review on Apple Podcasts that I'd like to read for you. This is from Dog Lover, who said, "Get your HP fix. When you're on the road, get a quick dose of inspired people sharing their experience, strength, and hope." Thank you so much, Dog Lover, for your review of the podcast recently. Really appreciate that. That really helps get the message out to more people who are seeking tools and experience strength and hope and recovery. And as I mentioned before we started recording today, as I was putting together the business and notes for this meeting, I realized that just a couple of days ago on June 19th, Rico 12 celebrated its 4-year anniversary since our first meeting. Thank you all for making this project what it is today. Rico 12 has now been downloaded over 180,000 times in 143 countries all over the world. These facts just blow my mind, and it humbles me beyond belief, and I'm so grateful to be an instrument in the hands of the God of my understanding in this work. If you want to go back and see how things have changed, see how things have remained similar over time, I invite you to go back and listen to the first few episodes. It's been a while since I listened to those, and I'm going to do that just to hear what's changed, what's been different, and how things come along. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue our mission. Thanks to our spearheads for new and repeat contributors. And, recently, just a couple days ago, because it was 4 years, we had to renew our Zoom license for the next year last week. And due to your generous contributions over the last year, we were able to make it happen without any issues. Thank you all to all you spearheads for helping us keep the lights on for another year. If you also feel the desire to become a spearhead and support this cause, visit www.rico12.com/support or click on the links in the show notes and chat for one-time or monthly donation options. Your support, not only financially, but with your word of mouth, makes a big difference in keeping us able to share these messages of recovery. We look forward each meeting to receiving from the light reflected in our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for today, Kevin B., and give a little background on him. Kevin got sober in Sexaholics Anonymous on June 11th, 2019. He was first introduced to SA in 2001 by a therapist, but he didn't know yet how to be rigorously honest, so he faded away from the program after a few years. After HP returned him to the program in 2018, he thought he could skip right over steps 2 and 3 because his faith practice had already been a central focus for him since early childhood. He never expected the spiritual re-education he's received over the last 5 years, nor the consistent spiritual experiences he now joyously receives. Take it away, Kevin. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm really looking to higher power to be something that helps me do what he wants, because I have a tendency to want to have everything prepared, want to have everything all set and know right where my notes are and what I'm going to say. And I realize that's me trying to run the show. So I'm just going to do what I've prepared and leave room for higher power to do whatever is going to help somebody here today, hopefully. I led a double life since I was 4 years old. Um, that's when the kid moved in next door, and we would play nasties on the side of my house. That's what we called it. Um, when we would explore, and it started with just peeing on the side of the house because we didn't want to go into our house and leave the other one to get bored and go home. And so that was something that I engaged in that was very secret. It was something that I didn't want anybody to know. They just couldn't know. And so that's the origin of my double life, of doing something in one part of my life that nobody knew about, that was completely private, and that I just couldn't face up to in any way. Now that um, double life uh, lasted um, well until really until 2019, but I didn't act out with another person until after I was married, after I had 4 kids. And I was in the process of changing careers when this happened. But that first time was devastating. And I just, it floored me. And my wife ended up just one day saying, Kevin, what is wrong? What's going on? And so I told her, and it was obviously difficult for her, but we made it through. And then I I did it again a couple of years later, and that I said, okay, no more, and I promised no more. And my wife said she couldn't deal with it if I did it again. And so that was it. I wasn't going to do it anymore. And I went into SA, Sexaholics Anonymous, and it was great. I learned a lot. I got sober. Um, and then gradually over time, I I found little things just being okay. Well, I'm not doing what I did, but I this is okay. And then that gradually escalated, as it does for most people that I talk to in the program. And I ended up getting to a point where I would spend several hours a day hooking up with on hookup apps. I would spend all kinds of time just hunting on these hookup apps. And then that would lead to actually hooking up and meeting people. And that just became super, super difficult. I don't know how I kept this double life going. I don't know how I kept going at all, but especially without being caught or without breaking down and blurting it out. And this kept going until one day I decided I got to fix this. I'm just going to stop. Nobody can know. And I'm not going to hurt my wife. And this is something that I'm just going to keep to myself. I'm not going to let anybody know. I'm just going to uh, I'm just going to change. But that didn't last for very long before I realized, ooh, I can't change on my own, and I can't go back to SA. I can't talk to my clergy. I can't do any of that because then my wife will find out. and I'm not willing to hurt her. I'll do anything in order to preserve her because I'm not willing to do that. So when I realized I couldn't do it on my own, but I couldn't reach out for any help, I became really hopeless. I just gave up that there's nothing I can do to stop. And my relationship with HP was um, pretty nil. I didn't have much connection at all because I just didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel like I could dare approach because of what I've been doing and how dishonest I was. So losing hope like this was way worse than I expected. When I didn't have hope, there's nothing else I could have. And so, not having hope, I found myself looking for ways that I might die and make it look like an accident. So at least my family could have some insurance from it. Uh, I realized, oh, this is a pretty bad place to be in, but I didn't have hope for anything else. And it was about this time that I dared ask HP for just one little thing. I remember saying something like, I know I don't deserve to ask for anything, but if, and this is a big if there's just one little thing that I could ask for, may I have some little bit of hope? I knew HP could give that to me, but I didn't know how. Um, and so that's all I could ask for. But this is when higher power led me back into SA. Um, Once I got there, he put in place what I call my trifecta. First, he helped me get a sponsor. And then he helped me connect with clergy. And then he helped me get a therapist who understood why I was acting out, especially why I was acting out the way I was acting out. I just thought it was so different and wrong and weird and just bad. But this therapist helped me understand that my actions don't dictate what I am. My thoughts don't dictate what I am. Um, my beliefs don't dictate what I am. It's just that I was thinking these things, I was feeling these things, I was doing these things, and he helped me see that that didn't make me bad. It didn't put any label on me. It was just a problem that I had. So I thought, um, this is going to be it. I'm gonna get better. I mean, I did get better. It was very gradual, and I was in the program for about a year before I got sober. I took many 30-day chips. I had many 1 and 2 week periods. I had a couple 60-day chips, but it wasn't for about a year that I finally got sober. That last time that I acted out, and realized, nothing's really changed because I acted out last night. The only thing that changes is my sobriety date, but I still have the same goals. I still want to learn whatever I can learn to get better and to find recovery. So I think that view helped me without beating myself up, without this idea that I just failed. I didn't just fail. Uh, it was just another part of the steps that I was on. And I just needed to take those steps so I could get back to working the 12 steps. Now, I thought that I would just sail right through steps 2 and 3 um, because I had what I thought was a really good, if not perfect, understanding of God. And since I was real small, I can remember really feeling spiritual influence and feeling like I had a spiritual understanding of God. And in my faith tradition, uh, believing wholeheartedly that I knew the God. And I just figured, okay, steps 2 and 3 are going to be so easy. Let me just get through one. Number one, I'm going to give it all I got. And then when I got to steps 2 and 3, I realized this program has something different for me. It's not instead of what I already believe. It's an addendum. It's an addition to. It's helping me see it in a different light. Um, Growing up, I couldn't understand why anybody would doubt that there is a God, because in my narrow perspective, I just knew that there was a God. I followed every commandment that I could. I took all the steps I could in my religion, and I just knew there wasn't a doubt. And I I just figured that this is the only way. I had a problem in the 12 steps when they would talk about God as you understand him. Because of my previous training, I would think to myself, no, no, it's not God as I understand him. It's how he is. And looking back, I see how that view itself separated me from others in the program. And it kept me from learning humility. As a quick aside, and please excuse my ADD, I do a lot of tangents, but I promise I have notes. I'll come back. But the aside is, with this idea of who God is and how he operates, that's this idea that I can know for myself, and I have to find the point he wants for me. With each of the 12 steps, there's an idea or a concept or a virtue or a principle, and it's different depending on where you look. But it's about honesty or integrity or humility, and I found in my own experience with the steps, it seems to me like humility is the core principle or virtue that I get out of each one of the steps. And this idea of humility is what I was really fighting against when I insisted that there is only one God. I happen to know what that God is like. And I don't like this line that God as you understand him. But I realized at some point, and it wasn't a sudden flash, but I came to understand that the purpose of God or higher power in the 12 steps is not to get everybody to believe in God. That's that's not the scope of the 12 steps. I believe, and this is the 12 steps according to Kevin, I believe the reason that higher power is such a big focus in the 12 steps is so that we can be unified. And to be unified means that we work the steps, which working the steps means surrendering, which another quick aside, did you know that the word surrender doesn't appear in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? It's all over the white book of Sexaholics Anonymous. But to develop this sense of surrender and humility, I can't set myself apart from others in the program thinking that, well, I have this knowledge and I'm right. I need to humble myself and say, well, what's the purpose of saying God as you understand him? And how can that help me? I'm going to humble myself and say, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, I don't know everything. Maybe I can learn something here, become teachable. What can I learn from this? And so I realized the purpose of the emphasis on God in the 12 steps is so that I have something to believe in other than myself. And if we said that it's the Christian God or the Muslim God or the universe or something specific, that's going to leave out a lot of people. And so if we keep it just like Bill W. wrote it, then anybody can be part of this program. I found something I found very helpful about this idea of a belief in a higher power and why. There's a newer 12-step fellowship called Gaming Addicts Anonymous, and I love what they have on their website. So I'm going to read that because I think it's just well written, well worded, and I stand behind it. They say that Gaming Addicts Anonymous is an international fellowship of people of many different worldviews, spiritual beliefs, and religions. We carefully word for inclusiveness our steps and traditions, and literature is careful not to imply an affiliation with or opinion on any religion or spiritual worldview. When referring to the power outside ourselves sought in the 12 steps, our literature simply calls it power greater than ourselves or higher power to include all possible concepts, including God, and not to exclude any concept. In GAA meetings, Muslims, Christians, atheists, Buddhists, Jews, humanists, Hindus, New Agers, Taoists, agnostics, and people of many other philosophies and spiritual beliefs should all feel free to mention their beliefs and religious affiliation or lack of it. When we do so, we're careful not to imply that as a group we all share the same belief or that working our program requires that belief. This problem that I had with God as we understand him, I just didn't know how unhumble that was of me. And I was only thinking of me and how everyone needs to think and believe like me. I was focused on the identity of God rather than a basic source of higherness where all of us can aim our humility. It wasn't about belief in God. It was about developing my humility. So I now like to refer in meetings and in 12-step settings to HP. Sometimes I'll say higher power, not my higher power, but higher power. I often avoid saying even God because I know there's a lot of people, even if it's one person in a meeting that has a problem for whatever reason with the term God, God. And so the term HP is generic enough that I can say yes, because the God I believe in, the God I know personally, is a power greater than me. So I'm not denying or changing anything when I say HP. And anybody else in a meeting hopefully can identify with that too, with their idea of God. But what unifies us is that we all have a recognition of a higher power that's bigger than us that we can all relate to. We don't have to go into details about what that God is or who that God is or any characteristics. So I don't even like using the Lord's Prayer at the end of meetings. In SA, it's quite common, at least in the meetings that I go to, that we close out a meeting by standing and joining hands and reciting the Lord's Prayer. And it says, or a prayer of your choice. But it just seems to me that we're assuming that everybody in that room embraces a Christian understanding of HP. And it doesn't do much in my mind for unity. But nobody made me king of SA. I have to be reminded over and over again to submit to the group conscience. And if they want to close the meetings out using the Lord's Prayer, I'm just going to go along with that. Let's see. Oh, I'm right up against time. Let me just share this. And this just came up this morning as I was studying from the White Book. I read this paragraph that just seems to be all about humility for me. It says, and this is talking about taking step 9, says there's no feeling in all the world like having mended a long-standing wrong. It's better than the relief that comes from finally pulling a thorn from a festering finger, more like pulling a thorn from our festering soul. Soul surgery. By the grace of God, and as I read this, I put it in the first person. So that's the way I'm going to finish this paragraph. By the grace of God, I make myself well, and the healing process spreads to those around me. It's an adventure of the highest order, often experiencing anxiety with the adrenaline running high. I come to life. It's the moment of truth. I cast myself onto God. I courageously come face to face, not only with the other person I'm making amends with that I've avoided, but with myself, the real monster that I've been fleeing all my life. Then, when I've done this, there's a marvelous sense of accomplishment, release, relief, and great joy. Why did I ever wait so long? So thank you for hearing my story. This is just what works for me. And I plan on staying in the program for the rest of my life because there's a lot of these principles and virtues that I'm going to need more time to develop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing your story, sharing your experience, strength, and hope, and your perspective on HP and HP's role in the meetings and in the 12 steps. I know I gained some things. I wrote down several questions and thoughts that came to me as we went along. I want to remind our live audience, if you have a question or anything for Kevin, please type that in the chat, and we'll get to those. If you want to remain anonymous, either direct message it to me or just type at the beginning of your question, anonymous, please, and I won't announce your first name. But let's get right into this. Kevin, one of the things that really stuck out to me and really I identified with is you said, I knew the God. Now, how does the recognition of your own ignorance, or how did the recognition of your own ignorance or even agnosticism to a certain extent affect you when you first realized, wow, I really don't know everything there is to know about God?
I think I was always afraid of that realization because it would mean that I was wrong or that God was wrong. And what actually came about was it was freeing for me to admit, but also to be allowed to acknowledge that I don't know everything, and that's okay. My perfectionism wouldn't allow me to be okay being wrong. And what it also gave me was a comfort that I wasn't wrong, that it was just my approach to God was wrong. What I believed about God, what I felt that I had firm, clear witness about Him was not different. It was just that my belief that I was right and that I knew the one thing was, and that was more important than anything else, that was wrong. I can step back and know that you and I may have different gods. You may understand him different. It may not even be a masculine pronoun, but we can be together on the same page and unified in our efforts toward recovery by just acknowledging that we're unified in our belief and understanding that there is a power greater than us.
Thank you, Kevin. And when you talked about that unifying principle, the HP unifies by working the steps and surrendering together. When you mentioned that, that was a powerful concept to me, and you just reiterated that. Talk a little bit more about the unifying. So often, let me back up just a little bit. So often in whether it be the rooms of recovery, whether it be at work, whether it be wherever, when God is spoken of, it's a dividing thing between people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you try and, I mean, you've talked about this a little bit, but let's go a little bit deeper in how HP unites rather than divides.
In my faith tradition, there is an idea in scripture that says the most important thing that God wants of me is to put him first and to respect him, to love him, to honor him. And the second most important thing is to treat my fellow man like that. So, number one most important for me is to honor God. And the second most important thing for me is to honor other people. And so this idea of unifying and this principle of unity is captured in that. If I don't do so well with honoring God, and I focus then on, well, I'm going to focus on honoring others, then that helps me honor God. If I don't like people and I just don't want to be around people and I want to improve that, if I honor God, it's going to help me honor other people. So if I'm in the rooms and I have a problem with somebody's understanding of God, then I want to focus on honoring God. And if I honor him, I'm going to honor both his first and second great commandments. The second one being, hey, honor that guy over there that you don't agree with. Really? You mean I can honor somebody and not agree with them? That blew my mind when that idea gradually came into my head. It's so simple, but it's so powerful to me.
Man, that is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that, Kevin. Earlier on in your share, you said when I don't remember if it was the first time you came into the rooms or the second time you came into the rooms, that you were getting better. What does getting better look like to you? What does that process of getting better in your recovery process look like to you?
That comes up in something that I also read this morning. I'm not going to turn to it to quote it verbatim, but the idea is I learned to do this, and specifically to your question, I get better by doing whatever it is I need in that moment as many times as it takes. My perfectionistic approach to life, and especially approach to myself, is, oh, I learned this, I did it, now I have it down. And that's still a hard thing for me to let go. But if I take this notion that I read this morning as many times as it takes, that means that I might still have to go back to HP and say, all right, I didn't do this very well. Even though I learned it 30 years ago, acknowledging that not only do I still not understand it, or I still can't do it, but acknowledging that that's okay. I believe that higher power gave me this addiction, just like he gave me all kinds of weaknesses, all kinds of faults. To use 12-step lingo, he gave me these defects of character, not because he's a mean, vindictive, nasty God, but because he knows that only through working through stuff like this can I improve. And so I I have all kinds of faults and defects that I can say, yep, that's still something that I'm struggling with. And that's okay that I'm still struggling with it. That was a hard concept for me for many years.
Yeah, as a fellow recovering perfectionist and one who just dies in that perfectionism, I totally identify with what you just shared there. And the ability to step back and say, you know what, I'm not perfect, and that's okay. I can try and progress by keep doing. What did you say? By getting better, by doing this as many times as it takes. Keep going. Keep practicing that. You know, Kevin, earlier in your share, you talked about, you know, you couldn't talk to your wife, you couldn't talk to your clergy, you couldn't talk to anybody else about this because, well, it would hurt them too bad. Um, where I'm going with this is, what is the difference between, do you see a difference between, you know, protecting somebody from the truth of your own things versus protecting self, protecting your own interests? Do you understand what I'm asking there in
I
that
think I
instance?
do.
Okay.
If I understand what you're saying, that wasn't really my problem, because to the best of my ability, I really was thinking about my wife. I really, she told me point blank, I can't deal with this if you do it again. And I believed her. And so it wasn't me just trying to avoid my pain of disclosure. It was avoiding her pain. But to your point, what I was self-focused on in that was that I didn't understand yet that if I could get through this, and if HP could get me through what I had done, what I didn't think about at that time was he can also get my wife through what she will be going through. It's such, again, a basic concept, but I had no clue about that. And that's exactly, and in my experience, I got to a point after a lot of time and working with my sponsor, my therapist, and clergy, that I said, okay, I will disclose everything to her. What I didn't expect was that HP said, great, so glad you're ready, so glad that you finally decided and you've let go and you're surrendering. Now wait. And it was over a year before I got the go ahead from HP to make that disclosure. And it was then that he took care of my wife.
Do you mind sharing just a little bit more about that? You were ready. What was done in that year of preparation time between you were ready and HP said you got the green light, so that the green light happened? What types of things were done in maybe your relationship with your wife or whatever else to make it so that could happen?
Not much was done. And what I mean, I that's another defect of mine, is that I'm all about, what do I do? What do I accomplish? How can I be productive? During that year, I didn't do much because HP wanted me to wait. And I realized that, and I said, okay, I'm ready. Now can I disclose? And it was like, oh, that didn't seem very patient. Oh, you mean I have to develop patience too? Oh, I guess that's part of surrender, is surrendering my will that this happen right now. And I'm still learning this one.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Um, in Rico 12, we have speakers from all different backgrounds, addictions, fellowships, everything. So often, with maybe the alcohol, with drugs, with substances, when it's uh, we can't drink again. If we drink again, we'll die. If we use again, we'll die. You talked about, hey, I was at the place where I was trying to figure out how I could take my own life and make it look like an accident so that it didn't, so that my family could be taken care of. Talk to us about the deadly nature of sexaholism, for example, from your experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah. I've never been to an AA meeting. Um, Never had a problem with drink, but I hear guys in SA or AA say frequently how deadly it can be. And I know that a process addiction, as opposed to a substance addiction, can be just as deadly, because I was considering suicide. The shame that's involved with a sex addiction, I believe, I don't know because I haven't been on both sides, but I believe is more toxic with a sex addiction than shame can possibly be with an alcohol addiction or even a substance, a drug addiction, because abusing drugs is wrong. But when I do some of the things I did sexually, I became wrong. I was wrong instead of my behavior being wrong. And that's the big difference between guilt and shame, as I've come to understand it, is that guilt says I did something wrong. Shame says I am something wrong. And I know those with substance addictions deal with shame clearly. I'm not denying that. In my experience, sexually acting out carries another layer of shame that is, well, devastating is the word that comes to mind now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience on that. I really appreciate that. And yeah, shame is well, it's a killer. No matter where it's coming from, it's something that will take me out if I dwell on it. All right. So before we start wrapping things up, Kevin, do you have any final words of wisdom? Any final thoughts for us?
Yeah, thank you. Not to deny what HP has taught me, um, but to be more humble and to be more teachable, I have found great comfort in the set aside prayer. The first time I heard it, I thought, "Oh no, I'm not. I'm not going to deny everything that I've come to know from HP." And then I realized I don't have to. I'm just going to put those things aside, set aside, so that I can be open and humble enough to receive it again, or to receive it in a different way that maybe I misunderstood. And that's okay, because I have these defects and weaknesses, and he knows full well because he gave them to me. And so I'm not going to pridefully think that I'm better than others because I have something they don't. The set aside prayer says, okay, for whatever it is I'm about to do, whether it's have a meeting, talk with my sponsor, begin a formal 12-step meeting, but whatever I'm about to do, I can ask HP to help me set aside that, set aside my, what I think I know. That's what I love about the language of this prayer, is set aside what I think I know. I might be right in what I think I know, and I might be wrong, and I might just be looking at it in too narrow of a way. But help me set aside all of that so that I can be open enough to receive what you want me to receive.
Yeah, thank you. I love the central principle that I gathered from your presentation today, Kevin, is humility and unity, setting aside the things that I think I know in order to gain a new understanding. Thank you so much for this fantastic RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting. If we missed your question, if anybody out there has any other questions, please consider joining our WhatsApp community. You can send me an email at rico12pod@gmail.com and submit those questions there. If you'd like to get in contact with Kevin, run it through me. I can facilitate that. If you haven't already, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's a powerful way to work step 12. And next Friday, we will hear from another first-time speaker. I love all these first-time speakers, Tony H., who will be speaking on his chosen topic, identification. I really look forward to his talk. Stay tuned in the email. I mean, if you're on the email list, you'll get information on that next week. If you're in the WhatsApp community, you'll see it there. Stay tuned so that you can find out more about what's going on in the RICO 12 world. All right, now let's launch off into the rest of our day with the set-aside prayer that Kevin just told us about and that he will say for us.
Thank you. Higher power, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the 12 steps, and all the literature. Help me set aside everything I think I know about the program, all spiritual terms, and especially about you, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience in you. Please help me see your truth daily. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kevin. Remember, everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is HP. May you find HP now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. so far away from home. Now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me, your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone, 'cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me, your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone, 'cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. So let me see just what you need to set you free, so we can be. I saw stars fall from above, I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low, but now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.